Three spine-chilling true horror stories unveiled, the sinister secrets of last day of school. The final bell rang, echoing through the empty hallways like the chilling toll of a funeral bell. Megan, Josh, Kira, Matt, and Lisa stood frozen, adrenaline rushing through their veins. School was officially out for summer, yet a restless energy compelled them to explore the dark underbelly of their seemingly quaint suburban school. "Let's check out the basement," Megan suggested, her voice barely masking excitement and unease. Once they slipped through the back door, the familiar school transformed. Shadows lurked in every corner, whispering secrets of the past. They tread carefully, each step echoing ominously as they passed darkened classrooms filled with memories that felt tainted now. The school felt alive with something sinister. Despite the laughter and hopes that once filled the air, a cloud of dread hung heavy, fueled by the lingering mystery of their favorite teacher's sudden disappearance. Down the cold, cracked steps into the basement, the scent of dust and mildew assaulted their senses. The air was thick, heavy with something unnatural. Suddenly, the lights flickered above, the overhead hum fading into a murmured chorus of hushed voices. "Did you hear that?" Kira asked, scanning the darkness. The others nodded, fear creeping along their spines like icy fingers. Tension climbed as they discovered the basement door had been left ajar, an invitation to secrets buried deep below. Before they could second-guess their reckless decision, curiosity took over, guiding them inside. A chill swept through the room, as if the very essence of the place was stirring. Dusty papers flew past their feet, remnants of projects long abandoned. "What was this?" Josh whispered, pointing at an old cardboard model, half-finished and meticulously crafted, a reminder of a forgotten time, yet it felt more like an omen than nostalgia. "Guys, let us go back," Lisa urged, but the words felt trapped in her throat. Shadows danced along the walls, and the hairs on their arms stood on end. It was then that Matt, their anchor of bravery, froze. I think we're being watched," he stammered. Panic ignited in their eyes, and they exchanged uneasy glances. The laughter that once united them quickly dissipated, replaced by the thick tension of betrayal. Before they could escape, Kira's phone buzzed, slicing through the oppressive silence. She glanced at her screen. It was gossip from a group chat, the whispers hinting her father's involvement with their missing teacher. The revelation felt like a bullet, shattering their bond and planting the seeds of distrust. "How could you hide this, Kira?" Matt spat. "Shut up," she snapped, the group unraveling, spiraling into confusion and fear. Sudden cold drafts lashed through the air, voices rising above the cacophony like a wicked choir. Shadows morphed, reaching for them as if mourning lost memories. Panic turned to hysteria. "We need to leave," shouted Josh, his voice cracking under pressure. "It's not the building that's haunted, it's us." Suddenly, they heard a chilling whisper that sent shivers down their backs. It wants something. It was Matt, tremors betraying his bravado. The air thickened with dread as they pushed towards the exit, but every step deeper into the hallway felt heavier, as if a great weight pressed down upon them. Before they could escape, the darkness surged. Shadows spun like a vortex, wrapping around their legs. "Run!" someone screamed. The exit felt farther than the moon. Just as they turned back for one last glance, Kira gasped, her father's name escaping her lips louder than the dissipating echoes of the unimaginable horror surrounding them. And just like that, everything went dark. When the darkness finally receded, it was replaced by an unnatural stillness. The air was thick, suffocating, and all five of them were sprawled out on the cold basement floor, gasping as if they had just resurfaced from deep waters. Kira blinked hard, trying to clear the haze in her mind. "Where are we?" she whispered, fear favoring her voice. Megan's eyes darted around the room, wide with panic. "The basement," she breathed. "But, we were near the exit." "How did we?" Matt interrupted her, his voice trembling. "Look." He pointed towards the far wall. There stood a door they had never seen before. Different from the one they had sought to escape through, this door was old, its wood rotting, covered in strange symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. They weren't there before, Lisa managed, shivering as a draft crawled across her skin. She edged closer, drawn in despite her better judgment. What the hell is that? Don't touch it. Josh warned, but his voice carried little weight. The curiosity and terror twisted together in their minds, a potent mix of fear and intrigue. Kira took a step back. I think it's tied to what happened to Mr. Jacobs. The name hung in the air like a death sentence. Memories of their favorite teacher flooded back, his laughter now a ghostly echo. Do we really want to find out more? What if we don't? Matt snapped, his frustration boiling over. Every second they lingered felt dangerous, a countdown to something unknown. Suddenly, a chilling breeze swept through the room. The shadows shifted, coalescing into dark forms that flickered on the walls, whispering the secrets they had unearthed. It wants something, the voice reverberated, haunting and sweet, wrapping around them like chains. Kira blinked long and hard, and the symbols on the door flickered like the last remnants of a dream. Maybe it's showing us a way to help. We have to find out what it wants. Are you crazy? Josh exclaimed, eyes wide. What if it's asking for something worse? What if it's a trap? Megan clenched her fists, determination setting her jaw. We can't just wait here. We have to do something. Okay, but let us do it together, Matt said with fierce conviction. No more secrets, no more lies. Whatever's behind that door, we face it as a group. Swallowing hard, they moved toward the ancient door, heartbeats synchronizing into a frantic rhythm. It beckoned, drawing them in like moths to a flame. The whispers grew louder, their words floating just out of reach, tantalizing yet terrifying. Kira reached for the handle first, heart thundering like a drum in her chest. Cold metal sent jolts of unease through her. On 3? She suggested, trying to mask her fear. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. They turned the handle together, but before the door could creak open, the shadows surged explosively, engulfing them in a terror-filled chaos. Panic erupted as they fought against the dark tendrils grasping at their limbs, pulling them backward into the void. Why did we let it in? Josh screamed, voice fading as echoes swallowed it whole. They stumbled toward the door, desperation igniting their every move. The unseen force tightened its grip. We can't, Matt gasped, but it was too late. The glimmer of their dreams, the promise of summer freedom, was snatched away, leaving only dread and a foreboding question echoing in the darkness. What did it want from them? As fear continued to suffocate, an unsettling peace settled over Kira. A realization ignited in her mind. Sometimes, confronting the unknown comes with a price. The whispers swirled, and she couldn't help but wonder if they had already lost more than they imagined. All at once, a blinding light shot from the door, erupting with a force that sent them crashing backward, an explosion of white that lost its luminosity almost before it began. Their world was stitched back together, but with it came the disquieting knowledge that whatever lurked within those shadows had not so easily retreated. And now there seemed to be more to fear than just the darkness. What if they were the ones who were lost? They stumbled back onto the basement floor, dazed and gasping for breath. Kira was the first to rise, her chest tight with a sense of impending doom. The others followed slowly, their eyes wide and frantic as they scanned the darkened space around them. Kira, Megan's voice quaked, a whisper choked with anxiety. Do you feel that? Kira nodded slowly, the weight of dread crushing down on her. A sensation of being watched prickled at her skin, crawling over her limbs like 1,000 tiny spiders. The air had shifted, now thick with an electric charge. It felt wrong, like the atmosphere before a storm. Where's the door? Matt shouted, scanning the walls. The ancient door was gone, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Only cold concrete remained, devoid of any traces of the carvings or that ominous handle. They can't just take a door like that. Josh exclaimed, panic lacing his voice. What the hell just happened? Kira glanced down at their hands, they were trembling uncontrollably. Everything felt surreal. "We have to get out of here," she urged, her voice trembling with urgency. "Whatever we did. I think it's angry." The shadows thickened, writhing in the corners of the room as if trying to reform. Lisa shivered and rubbed her arms, her breath short and panicked. I just want to go home." Suddenly, the scratching sound began a deliberate, agonizing drag against the concrete. It grew louder, closer, almost rhythmic. Each scratch echoed like nails on a chalkboard, sharp and misaligned. The walls seemed to vibrate, reverberating with muffled whispers that twisted into her ears. "Do you hear that?" Megan swallowed hard, eyes darting to the floor where the sound seemed to originate. "Yes," Matt stammered. It's before he could finish, the floor beneath them cracked open. A dark gaping void emerged, yawning wider, sending chilling air and a horrific stench wafting upwards. It felt like a pit leading straight to hell. Whatever was down there was hungering, and it knew they were up here. "Run!" Josh yelled, but the staircase to the exit felt impossibly far away. Each of them stepped backward, frozen in a mix of horror and disbelief. "We have to go now." With a jolt of adrenaline, they turned. Kira led the charge, heart racing in her chest. But even as they moved, the shadows lunged at them, tendrils of darkness extending from the edges of the pit. It was as though the blackness wanted to devour them whole, to consume their very souls. "Stick together!" Kira shouted, desperation surging inside her. "Don't let them separate us." They leapt toward the stairs, but as they ran, the walls pulsed with a sinister rhythm. The symbolism from the door seemed to rise from the depths, swirling around them like smoke, drawing them closer. It filled their minds with images of terror, glimpses of what lay beyond the void, horrific visions of those who had come before, screaming silently. "Please," Lisa's voice broke, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I don't want to be next. We'll never make it out." Kira shook her head, fighting back a mounting wave of hopelessness. "We have to try," she yelled. Just as they approached the staircase, the whispers intensified, drowning out their thoughts, pressing in like a vice. Then, without warning, a figure emerged from the dark pit, tattered clothes stuck to thin limbs, a face covered in shadows. It smiled, revealing a gaping moss-stained crimson. "Stay forever," it rasped, the words wrapping around their minds like barbed wire. They froze as terror wrapped its icy grip around them, the reality that each second mattered hitting home like a fist. Whatever it was wanted them. And time was running out. Would they escape, or would they succumb to the darkness? Each heartbeat pulsed with uncertainty, and as they turned to flee, Kira realized something they all feared to acknowledge: they may not know the way back. Kira didn't hesitate. She bolted up the crumbling stairs, the echoes of their frantic footsteps filled the enclosure. The air was icy, wrapping around her like a funeral shroud. Behind her, Matt and Megan followed closely, while Lisa and Josh lagged, dared to glance back toward the yawning pit. Kira could feel time stretching, warping painfully as shadows surged closer. "Come on, don't stop!" Kira screamed, glancing over her shoulder. The figure from the pit loomed larger, its dark form flickering as if it were somehow stitched together from nightmares. The stairs felt never-ending. Each step pushed them further into a void of chaos. Josh stumbled, and Kira's heart sank. "Grab him," she urged, but all she saw was terror reflected in their eyes. He fell, hands scrambling for purchase, but the shadows snapped around him, dragging him back like a spider snaring its prey. "Josh!" Lisa's scream pierced through the suffocating atmosphere, a sound of pure panic. But there was no time to grieve. "Keep moving." Matt pulled Lisa, ignoring their friend's fate, but Kira couldn't shake the feeling of tangling guilt. The stairs twisted up ahead, becoming steeper and more exhausting. Shadows swirled in their peripheral vision, whispering secrets, tempting them to listen. Kira pressed her lips together, forcing the noise out. They reached the door, or what used to be the door. Now, it was a featureless slab, set into the wall with no handle or opening in sight. What the hell? Matt pounded his fists against the surface, desperate. Let us out. Break it down. Megan urged, adrenaline blurring her judgment. Kira stepped forward, hands shaking, pressed against the cold concrete. Anxiety gripped her mind. We can't just panic, there must be a way. At that moment, the whispers morphed into guttural, unintelligible growls, rattling in their bones. The entity's laughter twisted through the air as the walls trembled, vibrating with its malevolence. A kinship of fear swept through them. They were witnesses to something far older than they could comprehend. Help! Someone help! Lisa's voice broke again, drowning in despair. Shut up! Kira turned sharply, the desperation leaking through the cracks in her facade. We need to think. Suddenly, with uncanny force, the wall quaked. A fissure opened, revealing jagged teeth of stone gnashing together, and the darkness beckoned them, whispering promises wrapped in malice. Don't look! Matt shouted, grabbing Kira's arm to pull her away. Wait! There has to be something, but she hesitated, eyes drawn to the crack, its depths swirling with shadowy limbs. The urge to understand clawed at her, but every instinct told her to run. Then the whispers swelled, growling her name. Kira, she shook her head, grasping for truth. We need to focus. But there wasn't time. From the depths, the figure emerged again, a puppet on strings of shadow. Stay with us forever. Kira's heart thundered against her ribs, the words echoed like a fading heartbeat. Panic spiraled within her chest, each moment stretching painfully as the shadows lunged closer, clawing to graze her skin. Go! We don't have time. In a last-ditch effort, she turned her back on the abyss, sprinting toward the fissured exit. The others followed, fear igniting their instincts. But the pit growled angrily, shaking the ground and stealing the air from their lungs. As they dove for freedom, Kira felt the pull of cold darkness at her back, an unseen force trying to yank her into the unknown. Together! Kira screamed as they scrambled through the jagged opening. What lay beyond? Freedom? Or a prison far worse? They came tumbling out into the blinding light of the day, gasping, each breath a sigh of relief. But their relief shuddered like a butterfly's wings. They turned around slowly, dread washing over them. The basement was sealed once again, silent and foreboding. But even as they stumbled backward, a low hum met their ears, one that promised they weren't alone after all. If that was the way out, then what lay in wait for them outside? The sun blazed overhead, offering a stark contrast to the shadows that lingered in the depths of their minds. Kira, still panting, scanned their surroundings. The ground beneath her feet felt solid, but an uneasy sensation fluttered in her stomach. They were outside, yet the veil of safety felt flimsy, like a candle against the wind. Where's Josh? Lisa's voice quivered, dread spilling from her lips like a slow poison. The absence hit them like a rippling wave, echoing through the silence and gnawing at their hearts. He's gone, Matt murmured, his eyes glazed with disbelief, a ghost trapped in his own mind. Gone? Just like that? Megan's voice dripped with disbelief, but underneath, fear crackled like static in the air. How can we just leave him? He was pulled in. Kira snapped, her heart racing anew. They all knew it, but admitting it unleashed another level of horror. We can't dwell on this now. We need to get far away, go to the cops but what do we tell them? Lisa interrupted, her face pale against the brightness. What can we say? They won't believe, they'll think we're crazy. The shadows of the past loomed heavy in the air, mingled with the scent of damp earth and grass. Each one of them felt it, a weariness, a consuming dread that hadn't left. As though an unseen predator hovered just out of sight. A low growl echoed from the woods nearby, deep and resonant. Kira's heart jolted. We should move now, she urged, her voice trembling. They stumbled through the clearing, eyes darting as the trees loomed menacingly. Branches twisted like claws, grasping at the sky. Each crackle of foliage underfoot felt like a warning, every whispered breeze a taunt from the dark. Megan lagged behind, petrified, eyes darting left and right. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. They all tuned in, the growl fading into the wind, replaced by hurried whispers that curled around them like smoke. "It's nothing," Matt said, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "Just the wind, just the trees." "Stop lying," Lisa hissed, snapping around. "We can't pretend. Something's off." Kira felt it too, the heaviness of unseen eyes watching. Just as panic began to overtake them, the whispers returned, a sinister rhythm that pulled at their sanity. "Kira, Matt, Lisa, shut up." Kira screamed, clamping her hands over her ears. The chant swirled around her, threatening her grip on reality. Shadows danced at the edge of the trees, flickering in and out, beckoning, seducing. "What if it's the same entity?" Megan murmured, trying to catch her breath, her face pale. What if it wasn't just after Josh? Kira's heart sank. "What do you mean?" "Maybe it wants us all." Suddenly, the shadows merged and surged forward, blurring the line between darkness and reality. The trees seemed to lean closer, as if listening, breathing. Kira's instincts screamed to run, but as they moved, a terrifying realization settled in. The way home was no longer a straight path, they were caught in a labyrinth of nightmares. "Look!" Matt shouted, pointing toward the road up ahead, where a flickering bus sign swayed ominously. Kira's pulse quickened. "It's an emergency route." "But what if it leads us back to the pit?" Megan's voice broke, uncertainty gripping her. "Or worse," Lisa added, trembling. Kira swallowed hard. "We can't go back to where we started. We stick together." But looking into the distance, the shadows merged, transforming into shapes she could barely comprehend. The dark figures were closing in. With a determined breath, Kira clenched her fists. "We're not going down without a fight." They sprinted toward the road, a desperate bid for escape, but the gnawing tension clawed at their heels, pressing forward with every step. They felt it then, a surge of utter dread, as if the very ground beneath them might relent and swallow them whole. What presence awaited them at the bus stop? Would it offer salvation or doom them to something worse? They burst onto the road, breathless and wild-eyed. The bus stop loomed like a sentinel, its sign flapping in the wind, mocking their frantic retreat. Each gust carried a whisper, as though the shadows were exchanging secrets, plotting their demise. Kira could feel the eyes of the woods boring into her back, heavy and malignant. "Where's the bus?" Lisa stammered, scanning the empty road as if hoping it would miraculously appear. Time felt suspended, every second stretched thin against the anxiety gripping her. "There has to be a schedule," Megan started, trailing off as she caught sight of something down the road. A lone figure. Hunched and still, at the edge of the woods. For a heartbeat, Kira thought it might be Josh. Hope flickered, then dimmed as she recognized the twisted stance. The figure glared in their direction, shrouded in darkness. What is that?" Megan whispered, her voice trembling. "Just a shadow," Matt replied too quickly, but his eyes betrayed him, wide with fear. "It wasn't just a shadow." The figure tilted its head, stepping forward into a pool of sunlight. A low rasp echoed, words unrecognizable but laden with malice. Kira's chest tightened. "We need to go," she breathed, turning on her heel, but her feet wouldn't move. "You're not going anywhere," the figure hissed, its voice a serrated whisper that slithered over Kira's skin. It stepped closer, the shadows coiling around it like living tendrils, reaching for them. "Run!" Kira shouted, finally breaking the paralyzing fear. They turned, sprinting toward the bus stop, only to find the path ahead warping, bending like the broken glass of a nightmare. "No!" Lisa screamed as the ground bucked and cracked, sending her stumbling. The dark figure laughed, a sound like gravel scraping against bone. "They can't help you," it taunted. Beneath Kira's feet, the earth was shifting, changing as if it fought to swallow them whole. Megan screamed as she lost her footing, grabbing at the air. Kira lunged back, reaching desperately, but the shadows were hungry, consuming the girl into darkness. "No! Megan!" Kira's cry pierced the air, but even as she reached for her, the shadows surged, encasing them in darkness. The last remnants of Megan vanished with an echoing laugh, leaving only silence. "Just keep moving," Kira shouted, pulling Lisa and Matt along as they tore toward the bus stop. The flickering sign buzzed and crackled, a beacon of hope or a cruel trick. "The bus has to come," Matt panted, eyes darting to the shadows that writhed in anticipation behind them. Suddenly, the ground split open beneath them, a yawning chasm beckoning from below. "This wasn't the way," Lisa gasped, clutching at Kira's arm. "Where's the bus? Where are we supposed to go?" A sound broke through the silence, the rumble of distant tires, a low growl growing steadily louder. "Is that?" Kira started, hope kindling. A faint glimmer of headlights pierced the gloom, illuminating the darkness like a lighthouse guiding lost ships, but the shadows surged toward them, angry whispers clawing at their sanity. The bus careened into view, headlights blinding, but tremors traveled through the ground, shaking the very fabric of reality. "Get in!" Kira yelled, throwing open the doors of the bus. Her heart raced as the shadows clawed at her feet, desperate to pull her back. Matt leaped aboard, and she spun to pull Lisa in just as the shadows lunged forward. The doors slammed shut, enveloping them in the stale air of the bus. As the vehicle pulled away, Kira looked back, eyes wide with fear. The figure had not followed. Instead, it stood at the edge of the woods, a twisted smile on its shadowy face, fingers curling in solidarity as if to say, "You can run, but you can't hide." Kira's heart pounded, realization dawning that their journey was far from over. Where was Megan? What awaited them on the road ahead? The bus rattled over the battered asphalt, the dark becoming a relentless companion pressing in around them. "What if it's not safe?" Lisa whispered, voice trembling. "What if we just traded one hell for another?" Another low growl resonated. In the bus. "Buckle up," Kira commanded, dread pooling in her stomach. Behind them, the whispers echoed, growing clearer, a chilling promise that the horrors had only just begun. What would they find at the next stop? Or worse, who would find them? The bus lurched forward, the engine's roar shattering the oppressive silence. Kira gripped the seat in front of her, knuckles white against the fabric. Her heart raced, each beat a reminder of Megan's absence, the shadows still dancing in her mind. "What's that sound?" Matt asked, his voice quivering as he turned toward the back. A low hum vibrated through the bus, rising and falling in a disturbing rhythm, like a chant born from the depths of darkness. Kira nodded and glanced out the window, straining to see past the flickering streetlights. The woods pressed close, a wall of twisted branches and gnarled trunks, ready to swallow the vehicle whole. "Just keep your eyes on the road," she urged, trying to keep the terror at bay. Lisa slumped back into her seat, a defeated look on her face. "What if we drove right back into whatever that was?" Kira opened her mouth to reassure her, but the words died as the hum shifted. It deepened, pulsing through the air like a heartbeat, thrumming against their ribs. "Did you hear that?" Lisa's voice edged into panic, eyes wide. "Yeah, I hear it," Matt replied, shivers lacing his spine. "It's almost calling to us." Kira leaned closer to the driver, an older man whose expression was unreadable, eyes fixed forward, unblinking. The shadows beyond the glass seemed to flicker with malice, but the driver showed no sign of noticing. "Are you?" she started, but he cut her off. "Don't speak," he barked, causing Kira to jerk back. The bus seemed to shudder with his words, the vibrations echoing through the floor. "What's wrong with him?" Lisa whispered, fear crackling between them. We have to stay quiet, Kira decided, desperation pushing her to keep them calm. But her chest tightened as she noticed a figure darting between the trees, just beyond the reach of the headlights. Did you see that? Kira gasped, her heart hammering again, in the trees. Matt leaned over to look out. What is it? A dark shape moved swiftly, weaving like smoke. One moment it was there, the next it vanished. The blood in Kira's veins turned to ice. We need to go faster. Suddenly, the hum escalated, transforming into a cacophony of voices, rising and swirling around them. Hisses, shrieks, a chorus of horror. Kira pressed her palms to her ears, but it didn't help. Make it stop. Lisa screamed, panic-stricken, clawing at the windows. Just relax. Kira shouted back, but her own voice trembled. The driver's grip on the wheel tightened as the bus jerked violently to the side. In that moment, headlights illuminated the woods. Shapes moved, a rush of figures with disfigured faces and hollow eyes, mouths opened wide in silent screams, living nightmares born from shadows. The driver pressed down on the gas, but the tires screamed, grinding against the asphalt, dragging them back into the darkness. Kira glanced behind them, and her stomach dropped. The twisted figures hovered just beyond the reach of the light, drawing nearer, their grins widening, revealing rows of sharp teeth. What do they want? Lisa stammered, tears pooling in her eyes. Not what, Kira whispered. Who? The shadows shifted, forming a familiar silhouette, her mind reeling. Megan? Stop the bus. Matt shouted, shaking the driver's shoulder. The man's eyes were black, pools of nothing, devoid of life. With a jolt, the bus shuddered violently, tires losing traction. Kira's heart raced as they skidded across the road, and the intense noise paralyzed her. Hold on. The driver yelled, but his voice was lost in the chaos. The bus raced toward the edge of the woods, the figures closing in like a tide. Kira shut her eyes, breath hitching, bracing for the inevitable impact. She thought of Megan, the warmth of her presence replaced by the cold grip of fear. Then, sudden silence, the bus skidded to a stop. Kira opened her eyes, blinking into the dark. The figures had vanished, leaving no trace of their presence. Just the whispers, lingering like smoke. What just happened? Lisa breathed, eyes darting around. But Kira could only stare ahead, heart pounding. The woods lay ahead, swallowing any hope they had. And in the distance, a figure slowly emerged, stepping into the light. The chilling realization washed over Kira, this wasn't over. What if it's not Megan? She murmured, dread pooling deep within. What had they really escaped? Kira's breath hitched, a chill crawling down her spine as the figure stepped closer. The night had grown thick around them, an unnatural darkness enveloping the bus like a shroud. She strained to see, praying it was Megan, but the shape twisted and wriggled, contorting under the feeble glow of the headlights. Is it her? Matt asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't think so, Kira replied, feeling queasy. The figure stepped into view. Its face was pale and elongated, eyes sunken, wide as if perpetually startled. Not Megan, but a twisted mockery of something human. Turn on the interior lights. Lisa shouted, panic spilling into her tone, but the driver remained hunched over the wheel, unmoving. Kira felt her throat tighten. Driver! She yelled, desperation clawing at her voice. We need to get out of here. But he simply blinked, unseeing, lost in whatever otherworldly trance held him captive. The bus felt like a prison, bound by terror, the weight of the silence suffocating them. Suddenly, the figure moved, darting around the bus with impossible speed, its laughter echoing like brittle glass shattering in the wind. Kira's heart raced as she banged on the window, adrenaline surging through her veins. Get away from us! She screamed. The darkness seemed to pulse and thrum, responding to the intruder's presence. The whispers returned, louder now, more insistent, swirling in a chaotic frenzy. The disfigured faces materialized again, pressing close, a mass of terror that swayed with the rhythm of that haunting hum. Kira squeezed her eyes shut, resisting the urge to give in to panic. "We can't let them in," she said, a fragile calm settling over her as she turned to the others. "If we stay quiet, maybe everyone, listen." Matt interrupted, his voice shaking. "We need a plan. We can't just sit here." "What do you suggest?" Lisa cried, wringing her hands. "There's no way out. The driver won't even move." "Wait," Kira said slowly, an idea forming. "That shadow in the trees, it was moving differently. I think it's some kind of distraction." The shadow reappeared, now dancing menacingly at the edge of the woods, beckoning with pale hands that flickered like candle flames in the dark. Kira's heart raced. "We have to break the windows. Get them away from us." "Are you insane?" Lisa yelled, eyes wide with horror. But even as Matt's gaze darted toward the windows, Kira could tell that he was considering it. "I'm serious," Kira insisted. "We need to make noise. Draw them away, and then we can escape." As the murmurs grew into a wail, Matt nodded resolutely. "Okay. On the count of 3, we hit the windows and scream. We draw them out." 3? Lisa echoed, trembling. "Yes." Kira screamed. 1, 2, 3. They struck the glass with fists and feet, shattering the eerie calm. A horrific series of screeches erupted from the woods, the figures beginning to retreat. Kira gasped as the howling voices faltered, a moment of clarity slicing through the chaos, but just then, the driver snapped from his spell, eyes flaring wide. He slammed the bus into reverse, tires screeching on the gravel as they lurched backward and collided violently with a tree. Kira's head struck the seat in front of her, stars exploding in her vision. Dazed, she blinked and gasped. The swirling darkness outside intensified, shadows clawing at the bus as grotesque faces pressed against the windows, their breath fogging the glass. "What did you do?" The driver shouted, panic twisting his features. "They'll find you." Kira's thoughts whirled. The shadows were no longer just angry spirits, they were real, and they didn't come alone. Outside, something moved in the depths of the trees, a massive shadow that slinked closer, the ground trembling with its approach. Kira's pulse quickened as she realized that something much worse than the twisted figures awaited them. "What have we awakened?" She whispered in horror as the monstrous silhouette advanced. The darkness loomed larger, and with it, an all-consuming dread that promised only despair. As they sat there, frozen in fear, Kira could feel the air shift, thick with foreboding. "Can we still escape, or is this it?" she thought, dread curling at the edges of her mind. And just then, a chilling shriek erupted from the woods. The kind of sound that bore down on your soul and told you the end was near. Kira blinked, each inhale ragged and desperate. The shadows outside moved faster now, as if sensing their panic, a wild symphony of malevolence closing in on them. The driver's eyes darted, filled with uncomprehending terror, and with every second that passed, Kira felt the weight of a chilling inevitability pressing on her chest. "Step on the gas!" Lisa screamed, her voice piercing, high-pitched and frantic. "We need to get out of here." But Kira didn't think it would help. Where could they go? The trees loomed thickly, black and hungry, standing like ancient sentinels, guarding the dark secrets that longed to be freed. She turned to the others, seeking reassurance but only finding fear mirrored in their wide eyes. Then the driver seemed to awaken slightly more, but his expression was still lost, a wild man staring into the abyss. "I can't, they won't let us what?" Kira demanded, her voice shaky but firm. Suddenly, a loud crash came from outside, wood splintering, and Kira instinctively recoiled, pressing herself against the window. There, just beyond the bus, she caught a glimpse of the monstrous figure emerging from the tree line, massive and utterly grotesque, its limbs twisted and like tree branches, its skin a sickly white that glistened under the pale moonlight. A primal scream erupted from Lisa, overtaken by raw fear. "What is that?" Kira's heart raced as the truth gnawed at her insides. The very thought of it threatened to rend her mind. The creature reached toward the bus with elongated fingers, dripping shadows like a cloud of ink spilling from its fingers. Each movement sent ripples through the air, as if reality itself trembled in response. "Break the windows!" She shouted again, the words spilling from her lips like fuel on fire. "We need to let them in." "Are you out of your mind?" Matt shouted back, eyes darting wildly as he pressed his back against his seat as if that could shield him. "Please. It's like a nightmare out there. They're calling to us. We have to meet them halfway." Her voice was raw now, desperate. Sensing the shadows moving closer, thick and eager, Kira grabbed a seatbelt buckle, a blunt weapon, and struck the nearest window. The glass fractured, sending a spiderweb of cracks spiraling through the material. "Do it," she urged, her heart hammering against her ribcage. "We have to try." With a flurry of uncertainty turning into instinct, Matt and Lisa followed suit. The driver, caught in his own hysteria, shouted something incoherent, but it was lost in the chaos as the shadows seamlessly merged into the bus, filling it with a suffocating chill. Suddenly, their action had unleashed a swarm of horrors. Filthy hands grasped at the shattered windows, clawing their way into the sanctuary of the bus. Kira's heart dropped as a face emerged, a grotesque visage, dripping and distorted, a dim reflection of humanity that made her skin crawl. It was a beacon of terror promising pain and madness. Kira gasped, stumbling back, but she needed to fight, needed to see what lay ahead. "What's stopping us?" she yelled over the cacophony of screeches. "What's worse than this?" Matt's breath trembled as he looked at Lisa, then back at Kira. "We might not be able to escape, but maybe we can stop them before they reach us." There was a moment of quickened decision-making, a desperate pact formed in that fleeting second of clarity amidst mounting horror. Kira nodded, the resolve growing within her. The creature outside roared in fury, shaking the very ground beneath them. Its breath, hot and rancid, clouded the bus with a miasma of dread. "Let us gather everything we can, make a barricade," Kira urged, desperation and determination mingling in her voice. If they were to face their nightmarish reality, they needed to prepare. The darkness outside shifted once more, shadows beckoning and taunting, whispering things that sent tremors through her bones. Then, from the depths of the forest came a second sound, deeper, growling, rumbling, as if an entire legion of nightmares were marching toward them. "Can we survive?" Kira whispered. Trembling, as the monstrous shapes closed in, troubling thoughts swelled like angry clouds in a storm, and as the first massive, grotesque shape lunged at them, Kira realized just how fragile their chances of survival were. As the monstrous noise crescendoed, she asked herself a haunting question: what dark choices awaited them in the shadows? The cacophony of sounds melded into a single horrifying roar, echoing in Kira's mind as she looked around the bus. Adrenaline shot through her veins, and she felt that familiar burn of fear tightening her chest. "We can't let them in," she screamed, but defiance flared against the snarl of shrieks and growls outside, a final rallying cry to fight against the encroaching dread. The bus rattled violently as the massive creature slammed its weight against the side, glass shattering in a frenzy of chaos. Kira leapt backward, heart racing, but her eyes caught sight of Matt and Lisa, determination igniting in their expressions despite the overwhelming terror. "We can use the seats. Barricade the doors," Kira yelled, lunging toward the seats as a second monstrous shadow took form through the checkered windows, limbs writhing. Matt grabbed a seat and wrestled it free. "This isn't going to hold forever," he shouted, panic infusing his every word. We can't let them in," Lisa echoed. But, even as she spoke, doubt flickered in her eyes. The driver, still entranced, seemed oblivious to the chaos unfolding around him, his grip slack on the steering wheel. Kira rushed toward him, desperation clawing at her throat. "You need to help us." But he remained lost in the depths of whatever horror had ensnared him, oblivious to the cries of his passengers. Above the din, shadows pressed in beside the bus, twisted faces distorted with rage and hunger. "They want something," Kira gasped, fearing the truth strangled by reality. "They want us." As the barricade of seats started to tremble, wails erupted outside, voices rising ominously, forming a haunting chant that sought to unravel reason. "This isn't just about us. We need to confront them," she hollered, her heart pounding. She felt the weight of that awful truth settle over them like a shroud. The entity, the darkness, it wasn't merely after their lives, it craved their fear. Suddenly, the massive creature's arm shattered the side window, grotesque fingers reaching through jagged glass, desperate to snatch them away. Kira jumped back, almost stumbling over the barricade. "Grab something!" she yelled, seizing a jagged shard of glass from the floor that caught the dim light. "If we face them, we might find a way out." With unsteady hands, Matt and Lisa followed suit, grabbing anything they could for defense. Kira's breath hitched as Lisa's voice trembled. "What if we don't make it? Then we fight together," Kira asserted, pushing through the rising tide of dread. The shadows wrapped around the bus, momentarily receding as if gathering their strength. "We can't let fear win." The chanting voices crescendoed, threatening to drown them in hopelessness as Kira raised her voice above the chaos. "We know what you want. But you won't have it." Her fierce denial echoed through the night, driving back the shivering tendrils of blackness. There was a brief moment of silence, a heartbeat of uncertainty. Then, the lights flickered as the creatures surged, shadows twisting and multiplying in a frenzy. "Hold on!" Kira shouted as the bus lurched again. The shadows pulled and tore at the wood and metal, their whispers a sinister undertone filling the air. "Stay with us, forever," they hissed, each word a sting against her consciousness. "Focus!" Kira cried, vision narrowing to the dark shapes pressing against the bus. Together, they stood firm, a defiant trio. "On three we hit back. 1, 2, 3. The windows shattered as they struck, shards flying like lethal projectiles. The moment released a painful roar from outside, but Kira felt a shift, a response to their unity. The monstrous creature's advance faltered, retreating momentarily. "Now! Climb out the back!" Kira ordered, adrenaline surging. Lisa and Matt followed her lead, scrambling through the broken glass and into the night. Outside, the forest loomed, wild and tempestuous, but the monster's cries faded behind them. Kira's heart raced as they darted into the woods, breath short but feet moving quickly. They couldn't stop, they had to get away. "This way," she urged, darting between trees. Branches lashing against their skin, warning sounds turning to fading echoes of terror, but suddenly Kira felt something latch onto her ankle, cold and biting. She stumbled, glancing down to see a shadowy tendril grasping her leg, pulling her back. She gasped, scrambling against the ground while Matt and Lisa turned, eyes wide with horror. "Help!" she cried, panic coursing through her, but just then, she felt a surge of strength. The ground rumbled as shadows rose, thrumming with fury, but Kira clenched her fists and pulled against the grip. "We can't let it win," she shouted, determination cutting through the fear. With one last heave, she tore free and bounded forward, the shadows dissipating behind her as though they recognized the light of her defiance. All three friends plunged deeper into the forest, urgency fueling their every step. The monsters sang their torment in the distance, but victory filled the air alive and electric. As they finally stumbled to a clearing, gasping for breath beneath the starlit horizon, Kira turned her eyes toward Matt and Lisa, finding sparks of hope in their eyes. "We made it," she breathed, heart racing but filled with joy. But even as they shared this fleeting moment of relief, a low rumble echoed through the woods, and Kira felt it. The darkness still lurked, waiting to pounce. They may have escaped the shadows tonight, but the very essence of fear clung to them, the memory of unimaginable terror born of that basement still fresh. And no matter how far they ran, the echo of their choices would follow. To the end of summer and beyond, she whispered, a promise to her friends but also to herself. They shared a solemn glance, understanding that their journey was far from over. The woods loomed large, shrouded with tales of unyielding horror and whispers of what lay beyond. And with that knowledge, they headed toward the fading light of dawn, knowing that facing their own darkness meant they had to confront it, not just survive but prevail. But what lies ahead is unclear, and when day breaks, who will still be by her side? You need to subscribe now so you don't miss more exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this ending, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.